and welcome to 𝗤𝗵𝗱𝗲plants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today we have a plant care video for Scindapsus pictus, commonly known as Satin Pothos, which is a lot less of a mouthful. Although the plant is technically not a true pothos, it is related to pothos, however, and just as easy to grow. As you can see, the plant has lovely heart-shaped leaves like pothos, the common pothos. However, these leaves are covered in eye-catching silvery gray splotches, and there's a matte sheen to the leaves. It's just a lovely, lovely plant. The variegation on this plant, it's really distinctive. Satin Pothos is very easy to grow and makes a lovely trailing or hanging basket plant in your indoor garden. It looks great cascading from a high place like a bookshelf. When allowed to grow, the vines can reach 4 to 10 feet long depending on your indoor growing conditions. The vine can also be trained to grow up a trellis or moss pole. Scindapsus pictus is native to tropical regions of Southeast Asia, where it grows as an epiphyte, meaning it attaches itself to and grows up into trees using aerial roots that will form in the wild. The genus name is derived from the Greek word Scindapsos, which is said to mean upon tree trunks, so in reference to how the plant grows in its native habitat. Okay, so how to keep this beauty healthy and happy in your indoor garden. As mentioned, it's very easy to grow, but if you add some of these tips to your growing arsenal with this plant, it will really look beautiful like this one does, and get big, get longer, get bigger over time as well. Okay, so lighting. Satin Pothos thrives in medium to bright indirect light, but it can even tolerate low light. Although too little low light and the variegation may be a little less, and the plants won't look as good and it won't grow as readily either. So if you can, medium to bright indirect light is great. So in front of an unobstructed eastern window is ideal, and 2 to 3 feet from a southern window. Too close to the southern window and it can get too hot, especially at certain times of the year, and burn the foliage. The plant also does well under full spectrum lighting, which should be used if the light levels in your home are low and during lower light times of the year, such as the winter months. So give them some supplemental full spectrum lighting in the winter months to get them through the winter months till you get to the longer days of spring and summer. Okay, watering. Keep Satin Pothos soil wet but not soggy. Being a tropical plant, Satin Pothos does not like to dry out. If you drought the plant, you will get brown leaf tips and leaf drop. Water when the top inch of soil has dried out and the moisture meter reads 4 when inserted 2/3 of the way into the pot. Always use warm water when watering like it gets in its native habitat. Ensure that the plant doesn't sit in water though, as this will lead to root rot. As I mentioned, you want to keep the plant fairly moist but not soggy. Reduce watering in the winter months when the soil dries out more slowly. So do use that moisture meter or your finger, some way of testing before you just start watering. It's always good to test your plants before you water. So fertilizing. Fertilize Satin Pothos monthly, spring through fall, with an organic fertilizer. Chemical fertilizers are way too harsh for this plant and many houseplants, and I generally don't recommend them. They can cause crispy leaf edges and brown leaf tips on the Satin Pothos. Don't fertilize in the winter months when the plant slows down growth. Humidity. Satin Pothos comes from the tropical regions as mentioned. Therefore, it appreciates high humidity. The leaf tips will brown if the humidity is too low. You want to maintain the humidity in your home whenever possible at 45 to 55%, which is ideal for this plant. So check with a hygrometer, which will show you the humidity level and the temperature in your home. When you're checking, check in the area where you're growing your Satin Pothos, okay? And if the humidity is lower than 45, on a continual basis, then you're going to want to amp up the humidity as much as possible. You can do that on a humidity tray. You can do that by misting, and you can do that by using a humidifier. I have videos on on how to do all of those things, and I will link those below, as well as any other videos that I mentioned in this video and that will help you with growing your beautiful Satin Pothos. Another thing to keep in mind is grouping your plants. So the more plants you have growing in a space, the higher the humidity level will be in that space, because plants humidify the air when they transpire. So what happens then is all of the plants are humidifying each other. So the more plants, the more house plants you have, the higher the humidity level will be in your home. Okay, temperature. As a tropical plant, Satin Pothos cannot tolerate temperatures below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. If the plant gets too cold, it may drop leaves and will slow down growth. Ideal temperatures for the plant are between 65 degrees and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Also make sure to keep the plant away from drafty areas such as forced air heating and air conditioning vents, as that will dry out the air. Now, you may be thinking, okay, but I could warm up the air, but the problem is it will then dry out the air and it's too harsh for them. So in a heated room is great, just not in the direct airflow. And then when you do heat rooms or air conditioned rooms, keep in mind that does lower humidity, so then you're going to have to add some extra humidity as well. Okay, repotting your beautiful Satin Pothos. Being an epiphyte, as I mentioned, which grows up into trees, Satin Pothos doesn't mind being tight in its pot because it grows like that. It grows into tree crevices and cracks and crevices in trees, and so it's not needing this big pot with a lot of soil. You do want to repot when the plant has surpassed the 2/3, 1/3 combination that I always talk about. So when there is 2/3 plant to 1/3 pot, as this one is, and you can kind of could hold up the, if you have a vining plant, you can hold up the plant and kind of look at it that way. But and I do have videos on this concept as well. So when it has surpassed that, so when you've got 3/4 plant and 1/4 pot, so at the point when the pot's starting to look really small for the plant, then it's time to repot your Satin Pothos. But as mentioned, this plant is really not going to be harmed if you let it get pretty tight in its pot. So if it's wintertime, I would not suggest repotting. Generally, repotting in wintertime is not a good idea. So this plant will be fine to wait until spring, when it's a much better time to repot. Okay, so the as mentioned, use the high quality potting soil. Okay, so you want the high quality potting, and don't think I mentioned that yet. So use a high quality organic potting soil that's moisture retentive and has good drainage for this plant. This will maintain a biologically active soil for the plant by using that organic potting soil. You can also top dress with worm compost every 3 to 4 months. So actually top dressing, which means putting the worm compost on the top of the soil, can even be done in the winter months, because the worm compost has micronutrients, but it's not real high in any nutrients, so it's not going to overstress your plant. So this is especially a good idea if you won't be repotting, as I mentioned, during the winter, but you want to give the plant some nutrients, and you also want to add to the biological activity of the soil. So that is something you can do, is do that top dressing with worm compost, and I have videos on how wonderful worm compost is for your houseplants overall. Okay, pruning. Satin Pothos doesn't need much pruning. If you do want to get the plant a little butchier, you can occasionally pinch out leaf tips. You can also just let it grow. As you can see, this plant has some nice some nice different vining coming from different areas, and the plant will do that as it grows. Pests and diseases. Root rot can occur if you overwater, as I mentioned. Other pests and diseases, scale and spider mites can occasionally be problems. Treat scale with isopropyl alcohol and neem oil. The combo is really good. The isopropyl alcohol will get rid of them when they come. The neem oil will prevent the eggs from hatching. And spider mites can be treated with insecticidal soap. Also, another thing to keep in mind is spider mites like things dry. So if you increase the humidity for your plant, which your plant will really, really enjoy, as mentioned, then you will be less likely to have spider mites. So there you go for how to keep this lovely, lovely Satin Pothos Scindapsus pictus healthy and happy in your indoor garden. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.